My mama was a doctor, and I think she'd look at these numbers and say that Donald Trump's doing absolutely awful in the minds of the American people. What are we talking about? We're talking about new lows for Donald Trump. He's hit new lows for himself.
How low can he go? That was CNN's Harry Enton, of course, revealing that President Donald Trump isn't just polling badly on the economy. Apparently, he is setting records on how poorly he is scoring on his approval. So here's more from Harry Enton's analysis on the polling on this.
CNBC, look at this. Down now, minus 13 points on the net approval rating on the economy. You come to this side of the screen, it's minus 19 points among Quinnipiac. And keep in mind, we're talking about hitting record lows for Donald Trump in either his first term, which of course ended back in 2021, or his second term. Worst economic net approval ratings at this point among presidents since 1977. In the presidency, right, this is a new Donald Trump presidency. Look at this. He's the worst for any presidency at this point. How about the second term? Come to this side of the screen. Of course, Trump's in his second term. He's the worst for any president at their second term at this point. So Donald Trump isn't just beating himself with record lows. This is the lowest for any president ever at this point in either a presidency or for a second term.
That does spell big trouble, not just for Trump. I mean, this is, his last term, hopefully, but it spells trouble for the Republican Party. And in fact, this is what Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has been kind of screaming from the rooftops about. And it seems like everyone's treating her like she's crazy, but I think she's totally right. And by the way, according to The Hill, Trump is expected to get even more bad news very soon. Federal data set to be released Friday, meaning tomorrow of this week, or tomorrow, is expected to show annual inflation hitting 3% for the first time since the Biden administration, a full percentage point higher than the Federal Reserve's target. And guys, I'm personally not surprised by the inflation. I don't even know where we are with Trump's, what was it? Liberation Day tariff war. I have no idea where we're at with that. But I just think a lot of his policies have been inflationary, including pressuring the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates when, maybe it wasn't the time yet. I have no idea. But what are your thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, I think two really interesting things come out of this. First of all, notice that everyone talked about how bad the economy was under Biden 24/7. Now, Trump is doing worse than Biden, but almost no one's talking about it. So it's very rare that a topic comes up where we talk about the polling of his on the economy, his economic policies. Tons of talk about Israel, Ukraine, Argentina, in the beginning, tax cuts for the rich, DOGE, et cetera. But not much talk about the economy, but that leads to the second interesting part too. So my point in the first part is the Republicans and Trump are so much better at messaging than the Democrats. So when the economy is hurting under a Democrat, they obliterate the Democratic president and the Democratic Party. When it's hurting under a Republican president, I don't want to say barely a peep. Some folks are talking about it, but not anywhere near the maelstrom that was happening under Biden. Now, but that leads to the second part, which is that even though there isn't anywhere near that level of conversation, national conversation around the economy, Trump is still getting his ass handed to him by the American people on this issue. His polling is disastrous because, Anna, the economy is the one thing you can't solve politically with propaganda. Because at the end of the day, they go to the grocery store, they go try to buy a car, a house, and you're not gonna be able to trick them into thinking that higher prices are their ally or their special ally.
Yeah, look, I'm just gonna be 100% upfront about this. It wouldn't matter if you had wall-to-wall positive coverage of Biden's economy. I knew that my quality of life had not gotten better under the Biden administration. And in fact, I witnessed every tiny, minute update on the not big beautiful bill, sorry, the Build Back Better agenda that Biden had, and the way that he didn't really negotiate for the very provisions that would have directly benefited ordinary working class people in this country. So the propaganda doesn't even matter that much anymore. I mean, look, just to kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent on this, you have Israel committing more money, tens of millions in more Hasbara funding. And look, every tweet of mine or post on X, it immediately bots swarm immediately. But it doesn't matter because people have already witnessed what the last 2.5 years, 2 years looked like in Gaza. Right? Everyone saw it. We see the videos. There's no amount of propaganda that can change our minds about that. But yeah, the Trump administration hasn't been doing a good job either. And I think that's pretty clear. Let me give you some more polling numbers. Food prices and energy prices have been driving up inflation. And to be frank, Trump's unwillingness to follow through on that meeting that he had scheduled with Vladimir Putin in Budapest wasn't helpful because that rose oil prices by another 5%. Simultaneously, it's getting harder to find a job. An Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs research poll found that 47% of respondents said when it comes to their financial situation, they are not very confident or not at all confident they would be able to find a good job if they desired one. 37% in 2023 and 27% in 2021 said the same about their confidence level in finding a good job, marking a jump of 20 points in the last 4 years. So what this is actually signaling, guys, is that the Federal Reserve isn't incorrect. Like they're right when they note that, the economy has slowed down, thus justifying a cut in interest rates. But what we're really seeing right now is what's known as stagflation, where the job market is really hurting. At the same time, inflation continues to rise. So cutting interest rates isn't necessarily going to help the situation. In fact, there's really not much the Federal Reserve can do. And that's how bad the economic situation really is. US job growth has slowed from an average of 150,000 per month at the start of 2025 to just 25,000 jobs by August. And that's according to analysis by Elsie Peng, research economist over at Goldman Sachs. Cenk.
Yeah, so some things are not related to how dysfunctional our government and politics is. So for example, the corporations don't want inflation either. That also hurts them. They didn't want Trump's tariffs. Tariffs are driving up inflation a little bit. Tariffs are, especially the way that he executed them, were not logical, right? So it's not all just corporate rule and their donations to the politicians that are rigging the system. There are some other elements too, like Trump's bizarre decisions on the tariffs. But overall, the reason why you're seeing this in Democratic and Republican administrations is because we do live under corporate rule. So why does that make a difference? Well, when those corporate donors give billions of dollars in aggregate to the politicians, what they buy back is lower wages. The National Restaurant Association is a great example of that. When they were debating for like a second the higher minimum wage when Biden first got into office, the National Restaurant Association literally gave checks to Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin and many others the day after they voted down higher wages for Americans, right? A higher minimum wage also pushes up everyone else's wages. So there are literal donors and lobbyists working 24/7 to make sure that your wages are lower, not higher. So that is rigging the system. And then of course they want their products to be as expensive as possible to make a larger profit. So that's why the drug companies represented by Big Pharma, probably the most powerful lobby in America, are constantly legally bribing almost all of our politicians so that we're not allowed to negotiate drug prices. That creates obviously much, much higher drug prices for all of you guys. So as you see all these prices going up, also for housing, by the way, and I could show it to you in almost every category. There's a reason for that, because corporate donors have rigged the system in their favor through legalized bribery. And that's why you're feeling like you're being oppressed and the game is rigged against you. Your instinct is correct. They did it by buying off all of our politicians. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.